Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. So, with us soon moving to enter the Pale Heart of the Traveller, I think it's incredibly important for some of you to hear a little more about the light and the Traveller itself. But to talk about either of these things is to invite ourselves into a discussion without easy answers. The most fundamental mysteries of the light and the Traveller are yet to be revealed. But we can talk in relatively certain terms about one thing: the times when we have heard the Traveller. Today is the first of two videos. In the second of them, we'll be discussing the moments where the Traveller has communed with us specifically, or with other individuals throughout the system. Today, though, I think it's high time we talk about those who have supposedly communicated with the Traveller, or at least heard it on a regular basis. I am, of course, talking about the Speaker, or rather, speakers. You'll understand in a bit. Before we really begin, though, I think there's a big question that's about to come up, and I think we need to get it out of the way immediately. It's a question revolving around this cutscene from all the way back in Destiny 2 Year 1, the Red War campaign. You all probably know it. It's an infamous cutscene of Ghaul and the Speaker. No, not that infamous cutscene where he tells Ghaul to off himself. I'm talking about this one.
Ghaul, the enemy attacks the city, and the Almighty is lost.
Lost? Explain yourself.
Laid waste by the very same Guardian that somehow managed to reclaim its power, and has been humiliating our forces throughout this cursed system. You would know this if you hadn't been wasting your time communing with a machine and the creature who claims to speak with...
Take care your tone, Consul.
My tone? Huh! We will fail in our mission to secure this power and deliver our people. For the first time in the glorious history of the Red Legion, fail because of you and your preoccupations. Look at your Traveller, Dominus. The cage is complete. The time is now. Claim what is rightfully yours and take this power.
Tell me, Speaker, what more does the Traveller want of me?
Ghaul, I speak for the Traveller. I never said it spoke to me.
This line that the Speaker says has been a cause of massive debate amongst the lore community, and at first examination, there's a very easy conclusion to arrive at. That conclusion is that the Speaker, in this last moment of his, is admitting that he is a liar, and that he never truly heard the Traveller, and instead that he merely claimed to speak on its behalf for the sake of his own power. Without context, that certainly seems like it could be the case. The Speaker is also portrayed in other parts of the lore as an individual who is intimately concerned with power, and in particular with control over the Lost City. So it doesn't seem like too mad of a leap to make. But I'm here to tell you that this line needs a more delicate interpretation. To put it really simply, and to jump ahead somewhat in our story, the Speaker can hear the Traveller, but it isn't necessarily speaking to him. What the Speaker receives is in fact not so much a one-on-one dialogue with the Traveller through which it can interpret what the Traveller desires, but instead is a series of visions and dreams, which are at the best of times difficult to interpret. So when the Speaker is talking to Ghaul here, he's expressing the idea that the Traveller is broadcasting a message, almost like a radio wave that the Speaker can pick up on and listen into. However, the Speaker doesn't know if he's the consistently intended recipient of those messages. He also doesn't know if the Traveller is screaming out into the void generally. So with that rather important question out of the way, we should talk more about the nature of this, well, communication is the wrong word, but visions, interpretations, and we should talk about the people who received them. Yes, you heard me right, people, not person, because as I said earlier, there have been multiple speakers in Destiny's lore. The one that we know is the only one that has existed in the time of the last city. However, prior to their initiation and their discovery of their talent, there were others. We learn about all of this from a lore book released back in the Season of Dawn, Constellations. This lore book is one that I realize I've never made video content on in great depth, and perhaps this was just the right time. Regardless, it's a detailed history of the Speakers, or as they were once referred to, Dreamers. To get an idea of what they were like, I think it's important to read the very first entry in this lore book, which is entitled Dreaming, which is also set in the Golden Age when the Speakers first started to appear. As a quick note, the Traveler also speaks within these pages, and the introduction to them is often a few words that speaks as though it's speaking either to the Traveler or as the Traveler from its own perspective. In addition, the communications of the Traveler appear throughout each passage, interjecting into the Speaker's own records. They sort of add complementary layers to the sentences. It's a similar structure to what we see within the Trials and Tribulations lore book from the Season of the Worthy, although those messages came from a figure of a far darker nature. Those sections are highlighted by being between a pair of vertical lines, so when you see lines like so, you know that the like so bit is actually the Traveler speaking. Anyway, the first entry, Dreaming, reads as follows. You are the first to dream. In the dream you are shaping coarse sand with your hands. You lift a handful and it feels like the shifting of mountains. You drag your fingertip through the dirt to make a twisting line and hear the roar of moving water. You breathe and feel the rush of clean, bright wind in your hair. Suddenly, you are far, far, far up in the air, higher than you've ever been. You have gone to the very top of Freehold's tallest skyscrapers, but this is much higher. And you see the world below you with much greater fidelity. It is a beautiful green world, much greener than any place you've ever seen before. It looks like home. I am the first to dream. The dreams can happen at any time. A veil drops in front of my eyes, and I see strange moving images. I am someone else, or I am myself reimagined. I can't say. In the dreams I shape planets with my own hands. At first, I believe I am mad. The clinicians at Braywell call it interplanetary relocation maladjustment psychosis, a psychobabble catch-all for mental disturbances that they can't explain. Other people, searching for certainty, call it prophecy. But all I can offer is a loose, tangled connection that I painstakingly unravel when I dream. I am drawn to a bright and attentive star. I speak to it through movement, through feeling. It understands implicitly. Now I stand before a crowd. Their murmuring is the bone-deep rumble of shifting tectonic plates. A screen behind me plays looping, blurry footage of the Traveler terraforming Venus. The images radiate with pale light. We've watched this footage many times. I glide through space as if through water, tugged in 9 directions by 9 impulses. In front of the crowd, I sway a little, a copse of trees bending in a dream wind. I can't help it. I'm dreaming more often than not. There is whispering from the deep dark, alluring and terrifying, a reminder of things left behind, bittersweet and abhorrent. A crackle of static on the screen behind me brings me back to Earth, resettling my feet firmly on the ground. These people have come here for my insights. I lean forward and speak to the crowd. 4 tenets, aching with truth. The Traveler is a force of benevolence. The Traveler is a sentient being of free will, dreams, hopes, and fears. The Traveler will save us. The Traveler will leave us. This passage gives us some of the most fundamental understandings we've ever received about the Traveler, because they're all from its own perspective. And, well, in that perspective and the perspective of the dreamer who accompanies it, we learn a few very important things. Firstly, through the Traveler's dreams, as interpreted by the dreamers, the 4 tenets of the Traveler were passed down. These tenets are a direct communication from the Traveler, and whilst the actual skew of their purpose is unclear and could be misinterpreted or simply assumed incorrectly, it seems as though this is the Traveler trying to convince us of its own purpose, just in the same way that the Unveiling Lawbook was a long time ago trying to convince us of the purpose of the so-called Winnower. This is something remarkable, and it's remarkable because it is one of the first moments where we get a second-hand source about the interpretation of the will of the Traveler itself. There are very few other places where we can claim that this has actually been seen. Secondly, we get an idea of how the Traveler perceives those who dream and can hear its voice. It sees them as stars. It is drawn to them and can respond to them in their multitudes. This is perhaps why the Lawbook is called Constellations. Every one of the speakers is a part of these constellations, and the Traveler speaks to a bright, starry sky, a universe within which it nurtures those that can listen to it, and passes its song on to them. It isn't clear why some people develop the talent of being a speaker and why some others don't, but it does appear that once a speaker has been identified, they can be trained in their talents. No matter what the case, it seems clear that the difficulty with receiving the dreams is such that only a handful of people can realistically be speakers at any one time. There is also a critical note to be made. The speakers could only hear the Traveler so long as it was still alive. The collapse and the sacrifice of the Traveler above Earth led to a moment where the Traveler's dreams were silenced and the speakers couldn't hear them anymore. The death of the Traveler would bring about a terrible nothingness within the communications. The dreams would simply stop, and therefore the speakers would have little more guidance for the people of Earth. There were none who would be able to interpret the dream of the Traveler for some time, until one speaker changed everything. The passage where this is described is a pretty remarkable thing because it also tells us of a moment that truly defined a character, the creation of the speaker's mask. This mask has a function, and it appears that that function is to amplify the dreams. This can all be seen in the lore entry entitled Singing. It reads as follows. I am the first speaker to never dream. At least, I think that's true. In the days following the collapse, any speakers who survived were scattered to the wind, traveling with groups of refugees across the ruined wasteland that Earth became. Aside from the man who taught me, I've never met another speaker in my life. For all I know, I'm the last one alive. Before the collapse, speakers were chosen for their ability to hear the Traveler through detailed, lucid dreams. Since the dreams have stopped, there are other signs. Ghosts who follow us. When we do dream, we see a strange and blinding white light. We are prone to headaches. My mentor couldn't teach me how to interpret dreams, so he taught me in hypotheticals. I had to imagine what the dreams might be like. I had to speculate why the Traveler might come back to us and when. Like all speakers, I memorized the 4 tenets. The Traveler is good, the Traveler is sentient, the Traveler will save us, the Traveler will leave us. Sometimes I worry the Traveler has already left us. My mentor died of a wasting sickness 2 years ago, and I've tried to live as his replacement. But where he was a living memory of when the Traveler was awake, I have only his memories, second-hand, imperfectly understood. I can't give answers. I can't make the Traveler speak. Or at least, I couldn't. For weeks I have worked in secret on a project, gathering scrap metal and old, broken things left over from the time before. I've cobbled it together, tinkered with the mix of strange and half-understood technology, tried to calibrate it to my needs. A long time ago, long before the collapse, astrophysicists recorded sounds from the planets in our solar system and turned them into music. They transplanted plasma waves and radio emissions into eerie musical rumbles, roars, whistles, and hisses. The Traveler makes sounds too. Speakers have listened to its music for many years in the form of dreams. Carefully, lovingly, I build a mask, an amplifier. No one knows about it but me. I won't get their hopes up, even though mine are sky high as I put the finishing touches on it. It's not beautiful like our old technology was. It is scuffed and bent and rusted like everything we own now. But if I'm right, if I can do this, it will do beautiful things. I can't bear to fail. I have failed at everything else so far. When I'm finished, I wear the mask. Pieces of it not sanded down are rough and sharp against my face. But I dream for the first time in my life. I have cried out unheard for so long that my voice is raw. So here we learn something more about the dreams. They are, in a way, like a music of sorts that only those with a certain talent can attune to. The music of the spheres, if you will. The speaker was most certainly a speaker. There are other ways to identify them than merely just the talent of listening to the Traveler. Speakers are often followed by ghosts en masse. The speaker in our time knew that the Traveler couldn't be heard, and so understood that in order to hear it, one must listen. And so they created their mask. The speaker's mask is his amplifier for the music of the Traveler, which is also its dreams. In doing this, in creating the mask, at long last, the Traveler could be heard once again. There is more to this tale, and I'll definitely be going over it at a later time. The entirety of the Constellation's lorebook is important, and I think it's worth understanding the way that all this functions so that we can understand how we might commune with the Traveler when we enter it. But for now, I wanted to focus on this idea of dreams as communications, because there's something absolutely worth talking about there, and that's for two reasons. Firstly, the speaker is not the only one who has dreamed and received visions from the Traveler, and secondly, if we did want to test any of those individuals to see if there are other speakers living amongst us, it might be possible. Because whilst the speaker's mask was destroyed, it is still in our possession, and it has been reassembled. I need to look a little deeper into everyone who has dreamed in the lore, but off the top of my head, before any research has been done, I believe that Ikora Rey, Crow, Clovis Bray I, and Saint 14 have all received dreams of some sort that feature the Traveler or a figure that one might interpret to be associated with it within those dreams. Some have received them in moments of near-death experiences, others have received them in moments of tragedy. Crow received them, and it seemed to imply that he had a purpose. That's also to make no mention of the fact that there is one even more pivotal character who has for certain received dreams and heard the voice of the Traveler, and that's us. At the beginning of the Red War, we received a vision that guided us to the Shard of the Traveler in the European Dead Zone. From this shard, we became the single guardian that regained their powers and was able to combat Dominus Ghaul. And then there are other moments, such as at the very beginning of Forsaken, having just lost Cayde. We were guided by Ikora's visions, but we were guided to Io. And on Io, we heard the voice of the Traveler within the Lost Oasis, and eventually the Grove of Ulan Tarn, a place where our own light bloomed, and where we learned to harness new supers. There are plenty of others who have said that they can hear the Traveler, and again, I'll go over that in my next video about the actual communications from the Traveler and the dreams that people receive. For now, though, I wanted to focus on the second of those ideas about the speaker's mask, and the idea that we might actually use it again, because as I said, it may have been destroyed by the clobbering foot of the Consul near the end of the Red War, but it is still in our possession. In fact, I'd wager that if you've played the last few dozen seasons, any amount of time recently in Destiny in fact, any of the campaigns, you may have actually been in the same room as the mask. Go down to Zavala's office between the Tower Bazaar and the main courtyard, and you can see that in the corner against the wall, on the right-hand side as you enter, the mask is there in a display case in Zavala's office. It has been reconstructed and is still broken, but it's been reconstructed in an interesting way. This is what's known as kintsugi. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Normally, this is a part of Japanese culture, and it's a method used for broken ceramics, where the cracks are filled in and plastered over with coatings of precious metals, with gold being by far the most recognizable. Kintsugi is a delicate art. It's something which shows us that there is value even in broken things, and it's beautiful. It's also clearly been used on the speaker's mask here. Thanks to Precious Scars, a Titan exotic which is constructed in a similar manner, we know that objects that are infused with power by Guardians or with the Traveler's Light can still have their effects persisting or even being amplified by Kintsugi. So this all makes me wonder, if we were to directly commune with the Traveler in some way, or if we needed to hear it more closely, what's to stop us from trying to use the speaker's mask one more time? Especially in a time of need such as this, perhaps it might be prudent to at least consider it. Maybe we can bring it along with us into the Pale Heart if ever we need to listen for something out in its most corrupted regions where its voice might be silenced. The speakers are all gone, but walking amongst us, untrained and unknown to us, there might still be a few left. Waiting to find meaning in their distant dreams, waiting for the Traveler to once again hear their roar. And if there was ever a time to find such meaning, it would be now. A new constellation being formed might be something that heralds a new age of hope. And that is exactly what we need, when the stars are all about to be snuffed out for good. But that's all from me for now. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and leave a like, and also leave your own thoughts down below in the comments section. Of course, if you want more Destiny content, you can go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But as per usual, know that your viewership, as always, is quite enough for me. And that in the meantime, my name is Bife. Rodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.